So what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to examine this, and I'm trying to allow people to express how they feel about it. Now I said, and I want you to understand this, that I am not going to limit my examinations or my opinions only to Caucasian people. But I'm also going to make black people, Chinese people, Japanese people responsible for their behavior, their action, their culture, and what they believe is right. I'm still trying to deal with the fact that you got all these black people running around in white t-shirts and their pants hanging off their butts. How does this make sense? You have women in the community, black women, who the majority of them don't have a father figure for their children. They don't have a man who says, I'm your father and I'm here for you and I will take care of you. Well, I'm different because I have my children and I take care of my children. And my children are important. And I have changed my life. To explain a little bit about myself, to give you a little bit more about, to tell you a little bit more about who I am. I'm first a musician. I've been a musician most of my life. I also would like to consider myself a scholar. I've been in school most of my life. I'm still in school. I also write. I've written at least 5 plays. I've written children's book. I do photography, poetry, video, and I'm a songwriter and a lyricist. And this is only because, and I'm also a painter. I forgot all of that. I have a line of painting. You can go to my sites if you want to. If you Google Curtis Darby, www. Curtis Darby anything, you'll come up with some of my sites and you'll see some of the work that I've done. And it might be interesting for you to see who I am. But what I feel is important is that I want to have dialogue now. And I think it is my responsibility to share what I've learned as I've been here for 52 years. And I'm not saying that what I have learned is right and that is for everybody. But if there is something that you can take from this, and if there's something that you can give to me, then I'm willing to accept and I'm willing to share. And this is important. And I think it's important for us to realize what is happening to our society, what is happening to our planet. And we need to see it bigger than just ourselves. But we have to see that it is important that we understand that we play a role and that we have to say and do something to change things. And I see that most people are fearful and afraid and hopeless. That's what I see when I came back to America. And even when I think about George Bush, I think about this man. I say, he is the president. I said, but he has run this country for the last 8 years like a dictatorship. And no one has stood up and did anything about it. And if he thinks going to other countries, forcing our will on them, is going to actually change how they feel, he's wrong. And we have learned this. If you just look at, if you look at psychology as it is, and if you look at psychology and we start talking about human dynamics, if we start talking about human behavior, if we talk about coercion and rather in relationship to persuasion, persuasion works better than coercion. And coercion is when you force someone to do something. Slavery didn't work in that, and even when they tried to enslave the Native Americans, it didn't work. It's just not a functional way to do it. And most of the mess that we are in is the mess that we created as Americans. But I tell most Europeans when they ask me, I said, George Bush never called me, he never asked me how I felt, he never invited me to dinner, and it would have been nice if he asked how I felt about it. And like, as I said before, in Europe, and I want to say this to all the interesting, ignorant people like the Klan and the people, the Aryan youth and Hitler youth and all these knuckleheads. Yeah, I like to say this to you. First of all, I'm not interested in talking to you. I don't care what you think. Go on with what you're doing and enjoy yourself. I'll tell you one thing. I said that whoever created this nonsense, they're doing a very good job. Because when I go to Europe, what I see is that people talk about nationalism. But nationalism is just the easy way of saying racism. So the Germans don't want anybody in their country who's not German. The Italians don't want anybody in their country who's not Italian. The Swiss don't want anybody in their country. The Dutch people don't want. Moroccans and black people, and on and on and on. And most of the time, this racism is most of the time, this racism is directed toward people of color. So you guys can take a bow now and don't call me and don't write me and don't say anything. But you've done a very good job. And you've done a good job because people who should stand up and speak out don't speak up. And I want most white Americans to know that you're racist in most of the way that you think. Most white people, and I'll tell you, I've lived in I've been a black man a lot of times, most of my life. Let me say this again. I've been a black man, the only black person in an environment. And I know that people